Welcome to the Not Superheroes Just Dads podcast. No, we can't fly. No, we can't shoot lasers or pick up giant buildings. But what we can do is help set the foundations for our families, be present for our kids, and combat generational cycles. On this podcast, we dive into everything dad related, from the struggles we deal with as fathers to what our favorite thing to barbecue is. Hello, I am Sean Laurie, and today, guys, I am excited to have. He's a father. He's a husband. He actually wrote a children book,
Mm,
author, a mentor to the youth. I know he
yes.
dabs in some poetry. So, man, I have a guest for y'all that literally is just, he can do it all, it sounds like. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I'm excited to have you on. Man, Keonte, how you doing today, man?
Man, I'm doing pretty good, bro. I mean, we can always be doing worse, but man, I just thank the grace of God that
Yeah,
I'm here, bro, and yeah, I'm living.
that's dope, man. That's dope. Um, like you said, we can't complain at the end of the day. We get to see another day, right? So that's a blessing. I like to do a little icebreaker. Well, this icebreaker is going to be kind of what we're going to talk about as well, and probably it won't have well, maybe it might have you think some, but I saw recently, which I thought was pretty dope. You reached out to your teacher, right?
hmm
And so I wanted to ask you about that, about growing up, the teacher that you reached out to, what impact did she have on your life?
Man, she had a huge impact, and really me now being an adult, like in hindsight, I can really, see what that impact was. Because at the time, I was in sixth grade and she was just doing her thing, being a teacher, not knowing she was really planting seeds within inside me. But
Mm,
for those of you that don't know, like I grew up in Compton, Compton, California, and like the school that I was in, like, it was a tough school. And actually, she was the only like white teacher that I had ever had
really?
time. Yeah.
Wow.
And, she was just, now, like I said, now that I'm older, I can see that she just really had a heart for kids. And she used to just bring in like her own personal computer. At this time, we didn't even have a computer in my home. We didn't have no camcorder in our home. So she used to bring in her personal laptop, her personal computer, her actual desktop computer, and she had like a professional camera, like, and was doing like photography and like videotaping us and stuff. But not only did she bring it in, like she let us like play on it. She was showing us like how to navigate programs and things of that nature. You know what I mean? Fast forward, 20 some odd years later, now in my 30s, my career field, I'm a graphic designer. And when I
Wow.
really think back to that, like she was really the first person to really intimately introduce me to technology, how to navigate computers, how to work with, Adobe way early on then.
Mhm.
I even dabble in a little photography. Like I have my own, Nikon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was really because of her. She really put that seed in me. And,
Mm,
now I'm doing what I'm doing today.
that's dope, bro. Shout out. What was your teacher's name?
Her name was Miss Quinn, Miss Linda Quinn.
Miss Linda Quinn. Man, shout out to her. I know she passed away a little while back though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
So
I'm about to
that's
say that was the unfortunate thing, man. Like I said, I
mm,
I was just thinking about her about a year ago, and I was like, man, let me try to find her on Facebook. Found her
mm.
profile on Facebook, but it was like inactive. Like she hadn't posted anything in like 5 years.
Oh wow.
So yeah, but when I was a kid in school, her daughter had to be like 3 or 4.
Okay.
And some days she would just bring her daughter in the classroom with her. And one
Mm,
day I was just going over her Facebook and I saw her daughter comment on something. I was like, oh snap, that's her daughter. Like she had the same exact face and everything. So I
yeah.
reached out. Yeah. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I've been trying to reach out to your mom. Let me just send you this message. So whenever you talk to your mom, please relay this message to her. And I just pretty much told her the same thing I told you, man. Like, I
Yeah.
was just appreciative of her just taking her time to really teach us, show us things. And that's really impacted my life. And, I just gave her like a list of what I'm doing now, how I became a
Mm,
homeowner, at a young age. I'm a family
yeah.
man. I've been married, and I'm just like, this is a thing she'd be proud of. But
Mm,
unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago, her daughter finally reached out to me and was like, we love the message. My mom would have loved that. Unfortunately, she passed a couple years
mm,
ago. So
dang. Man, no, that's like you said. Unfortunately, she's gone, but it sounds like her teachings is you know is going to stay with you forever. You know what I mean? So that's dope that she has such a
yeah,
huge impact. You know what I mean? And so that takes me to what I did want to talk about is um, us as fathers, right? Being
Mhm.
um, our kids' first teacher, honestly, right? And
Yeah.
obviously, if you're fortunate enough to have a really great teacher in your life, that's amazing. And but to be honest, right, it maybe might be one or two, or sometimes none at all, teachers that really stand out, right?
Hmm.
So with that being said, it comes down to us as well, which I feel like it should anyway. But I want to ask you, what values or lessons do you think are the most important to teach your kids? Like no one else, just your kid. What do you think from an early age? Because I know you got a 3 year old, I think. So from
Yeah.
just an early age, what values or lessons do you think are the most important for you as a father to teach your kids?
Yeah, I think the number one lesson that I really, both me and my wife, we really try to implement in our kids is just really building confidence within them. Because I
Mm,
feel like at a young age, when kids really don't have confidence, when they don't have the wherewithal to really speak up for themselves or really just ask questions, then it's harder for them to navigate that world of learning, you know? And so I just try to instill in my kids, like, if you don't know something, don't feel embarrassed. Don't worry about your friends around you. Ask the teacher. That way you can get informed on how something really works.
yeah,
Also, speak out if somebody is doing something to you or somebody is bothering you where it's impeding your learning. Speak up. You know, you have a voice. Use it. God gave you a voice, so make it big and use it. And I think confidence is one of the key, the key lessons that we teach them. And then from there, man, everything else can just kind of steamroll itself.
absolutely, bro. No, I agree with that. You saying that reminds me of, I remember my son. He's 9 now, but when he was 6, I always do affirmations with him and things like that. He was like in
Mm.
kindergarten or something, and he has long hair, has a ponytail, had that pretty much forever. I remember a kid talked about him, say he was ugly or this and this. And he told me, I was taking him to school one day. I was like, oh man, like, how did you feel? Did that make you sad, or are you upset? He was like, no, I'm fine. I was like, you sure? Like,
Mm.
you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, why? He's like, oh, because I know I'm not ugly. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, why is that? He's like,
That's good.
because you guys tell me, and I tell myself that every night before I go to bed. I said, oh, all right. Basically, right, I agree with you with that confidence because I've been
Mm-hmm.
instilling into all my kids that, right? Where it's like, I know the world's going to tear you down. So I'm going to make sure I constantly instill these things. So, that, right? Because when you're a kid, like, you're not really self conscious about certain things, right? You're just going
Yeah.
to do it, whatever. It's not till like the world tells you certain things and then you're like, should I do this? I'm not sure,
Mm-hmm.
start second guessing yourself. So I 100% agree with you. So I asked that, bro, because can you share a moment, when you realize the impact that you're having on your children's learning or development?
Yeah, man, just really now that my kids are getting older, my 8 and 7 year old, like they're bringing home work, right? And like so, me and my wife, and also my wife is a school psychologist,
Oh,
so
oh,
yeah, so like education and learning like is really at the top of our list. It's top tier for us. And then also too, I forgot to mention this earlier. My 7 year old, my son, he actually is on the spectrum, so he has autism.
oh,
It's very mild, like you wouldn't like I mean he doesn't do anything like very out of the ordinary, but
yeah,
he still has that kind of learning curve to deal
yeah,
with. And so we're always checking their homework and making sure like things are right, making sure they turn it in. And it's been a couple of times like my daughter has come home with like her test or something like that, and we always give them like awards or like take them to Baskin Robbins if they get 100% on the test or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
There's been a couple of tests or a couple of assignments my daughter has brought home, and she was like, "Oh yeah, the teacher marked this wrong, but I think it's right." You know what I mean? And so
Mm,
me and my wife would look at the test and I'd be like, "Okay, 3 times 3 is 9." I'm not understanding why she marked that wrong. So I'm like, yeah, I'm like, go ahead and circle that. When you get back to school tomorrow, if you go into your class early or when the bell rings, you stay a little bit after and go ahead and let the teacher know, like, hey, this is actually right. Can you change my grade?
mm,
And like I said, it really gives them that confidence to really speak up for themselves and not just go for okey doke, like, okay, well, they said it's wrong, so must be wrong. Like, no, you gotta, do your own research and see your facts. And if something is right, yeah, you absolutely stand up for yourself because later on in life, when you in high school and you trying to get into a college, every point is going to matter. You're in
Mhm.
elementary right now. It technically don't really matter, but it matters.
Yeah. You're building. I like to say you're building good habits.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, man. So I mean, we have that, and like I said, especially also with my son, we actually just got him diagnosed, officially diagnosed in summer. Summer,
Okay.
he's in second grade now, so we got him officially diagnosed the summer right before they got out of school. And why
Mm.
we got him diagnosed is because in his first grade class, he was having like major problems. His work ethic was just horrible. The teacher was always writing us on the little parent app and things of that nature about what he was doing, and just kind of being disruptive in class. And it was
Yeah.
just crazy because the year before, when he was in kindergarten, shining star. The teacher was just like, man, I wish I had a bunch of him in my class. And we were just
Mhm.
trying to figure out like what is going on.
Yeah.
So we just figured that there must be something, because we would notice tendencies about him, like, okay, he would stack his Legos up a certain way, or his cars up a certain
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And like I said, my wife being a school psychologist, she really caught it on early. Like, I think we should just get him evaluated. But it was that mixed with his second grade teacher. It was actually her first year teaching, as
Mm.
compared to his kindergarten teacher, who was already a veteran. She had been teaching for like 20 years or something like that.
Oh,
So
dang. Yeah.
so she had much better classroom management.
Yeah.
She was sure of herself. And I don't think
Mm.
his first grade teacher, I don't think she was that sure of herself. And like I said, it was her first year, so she's trying to figure out how to manage a classroom too. And
Yeah.
with his diagnosis and her, it just really didn't mix.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we got him diagnosed. Now he's on medication, because not only was he on the spectrum, but he has ADHD as well. So we got
Okay.
him on some medication, and bruh, since he started second grade, total 360. I mean,
Wow.
total 180.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's more focused. You know what I mean? He's just more astute. He's
Yeah.
able to just learn a little bit more. But also, the new teacher that he has this year, like I said, she's a veteran too. She's been teaching for 13 years. So,
Mm.
I think all of that coupled with it, and like I said, us just not only building him up to advocate for himself, but
Yeah.
us being parents and advocating for him in the school system as well. Like, it's a big deal. I noticed that so many parents, there's a lot of parents I talk to that just, like I said, they kind of go with the okie doke, or if something happens to their kid, they don't really bother to really question it, or, really
Mm.
prod the system or what's going on. But like I said, my wife being in the education system, it's a little bit easier for us to navigate that. And her being a school psychologist, she knows her stuff. So, yeah, it's a little bit easier for us.
That's
But
dope, man. That's dope. So what does it for you? What does it mean to be? You and your wife, obviously, but what does it mean for you to be obviously like that first teacher in a sense, right? And how do you
mhm.
approach that as a father?
Man, it means everything to me, because for me, like my dad is still living, but my dad wasn't in my life, especially in my
Mm.
younger stages.
Yeah.
And so really, as soon as I got married and I had the plan to have kids, I automatically had this idea in my head that I wanted to be the father to my kids that I never had. So
Mm.
like when I was in high school and school and just doing things, there were things that I had to learn from like YouTube, like how to tie a tie. I remember when I first played football, I had to go on YouTube to figure out how to, strap on my pads and stuff like that. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is stuff that a dad should be teaching me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
Yeah.
so ever since I had that experience, I just made it my number one marker. Like, once I have kids, I need to be the stand-in that I didn't have. I need to be the father that's gonna, correct them when they need to be corrected, to
Mm.
teach them everything that they want to know. You know what I mean? I know a lot of parents, like my kids. I don't know if your kids are like this. I'm sure all kids are, but bruh, I could be dropping them off at school in the morning and it's 10 minutes away from our house. They're going to ask me a million questions about a million things while we're in the car.
Yeah.
And, I know some people, like, they'll kind of get annoyed by their kids asking a bunch of questions about nothing. But me, I just take it as an opportunity to just continue, even if it's just something as, why is a stop sign red? You know what I mean? Just
Yeah. Yeah.
explaining that to them and not being annoyed by whatever questions they ask, because not only is it helpful for them to learn, but it's helpful for our relationship, because it makes it easy for them to talk to me about anything or ask me about anything. So I never want to build that wall where they're feeling like, I don't want to ask dad about this, or I don't want to tell him that. Like, the lines of communication are open. I want them to know they can come to me with anything, you
Yeah.
know? But like I
Yeah.
said, it helps me on the teaching aspect because now I'm, becoming a father for the first time. Like, I just realized, like, bruh, I have to teach this kid literally everything that they're going to know in life: how to walk, how to talk, how to be polite, how to be kind, when the times to be quiet. Like, I gotta teach them all of that,
Yeah.
and I just take it in pride, man. Like, this is a blessing and an opportunity I get to do. It was something that I didn't get to experience with my own father, so I just really want to give it to my kids.
No, I like that, man. No, and yeah, it's I think that might be kids in general, that ask the questions. But what I do, I honestly talk with them, so it's not one of those things where it bothers me because so like I'll take them to school, but I'm praying before I drop them off, right?
Hmm.
With them, and then I'm going over certain things with them. I'm like my youngest, he's in kindergarten, so I'm
Yeah.
asking him, hey, how do you spell cat? How do you spell dog? How do you and I'm trying to show him. It's funny, all my kids' first word that they was able to spell was stop, because like what you said, a lot of times they would see the stop sign, right?
Yeah.
That's the first thing they would see, and so it was just easy. Every time we see it, hey, what's that? STOP, cool.
Hmm.
So that was so that's something that I've always did with them. But I wanted to ask you, like, how do you balance teaching your obviously they're younger, but how do you balance teaching like your 8 year old, teaching your children life skills with giving them room to learn on their own, right? Because like it is, you're not at that stage yet, but it does get to that point where they're like, I know what to do, or I kind of want to do it on my own. And for so long we're like in control of everything. Hey, what you eat, what you dress, what you do, right? So how do you start letting them learn on their own? Like, what does that look like? I guess, or like, or how do you go about that, giving them room? I should say more so for your 8 year old, because obviously your younger one, you have to help a lot more.
Yeah.
But how do you go about that?
Well, to be quite honest, like I actually started young with all my kids. I mean,
Really? That's dope.
yeah, just allowing them to do certain things, at an age that most people wouldn't allow their kids to do. Like, for example, once my kids, I think once they got about 4 or 5ish, like when they were going into kindergarten,
Mhm.
me and my wife started instituting, like, okay, you're gonna pick out your outfit for the week, or you're gonna pick out your outfit for the day, and now, like I said, all I gotta do is wash the clothes. We haven't gotten there yet with, especially my oldest, but all I have to do now is wash the clothes, put her clothes in a bucket, sit in her room. She can file them in her drawer the way that she wants to, the way that she knows how to, and then as she files them, she's picking out 5 outfits for the week. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And
Yeah.
so just instituting small things like that with them. Or now, like I said, I'm just so blessed. I'm at a point when they wake up in the morning, I don't have to go downstairs and fix them breakfast. Like, even my son will go downstairs, climb up on the counter, get a bowl out, we get some oatmeal, pour the milk in the oatmeal. He knows how long to put it in the microwave. Like, they're self sufficient. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
But
dope.
most parents look at it like, I'd rather do it for them because I don't want them to make a mess. But you gotta
Yeah.
make there's always a message in a mess. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you gotta allow them to learn. You gotta allow them to really
That's when
build their
they be running late for work, bro. They be trying to hurry.
Exactly. And man, that's another big thing too, is just really just being patient with your kids,
Yeah.
especially in that, like, allowing them to just explore their own little characters and figure out things themselves. You really got to learn to be patient as a parent and as a father. Like, I think that's one of just, like, kind of the golden, like, lessons that I've, like, realized in myself. Like, okay, I got to give her time. I got to give her time to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, I can't rush this because I got 33 years of figuring this stuff out. She's only been
Mhm.
on this earth for, only 8 years. So,
Yeah.
I got to give her that time to figure it out. Or I got to give him the time to figure it out. And they're going to get it, as long as they're not doing anything dangerous, like running through the freeway or nothing like that. Allow them to just spread their wings. They might bump their head, but they're going to survive. And once they bump their head, they're going to know, okay, I can't do it that way anymore.
Yeah.
Let me go about it a different way.
Yeah. No. So how do you, like you said, one it sounds like you guys have open dialogue, which is dope,
Mm-hmm.
like with your kids, right? And have great communication. But how do you handle when it comes to teaching your kids in situations? And I don't know if you even came across that yet. But when you came across situations where you might not been like really sure, or you felt unprepared for yourself to really like help them or answer that question or help them with that situation. Have
Mhm.
you ever came across that, and how did you handle that?
Yeah, man. Like I said, with my especially with my son is very inquisitive.
Mm.
So I think that since, like I said, since they asked me a million questions, and most of the questions I have answers to for them, I think that they just think that I'm Google. Like I just know
Yeah,
everything.
you are
You
Google.
know?
They don't have no phone.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But then we get to a point, like I said, we get to a point where they asked me something like, actually, a couple of days ago, my son had asked me, what did he ask me? He asked me something about like a drill platform in the ocean or whatnot. I'm like, how do they get it there? And like I said, I was like, I said, I know a lot of stuff, son, but I don't know that actually. But I just
Yeah.
told him, I said, you know what? When we get home, let's go on YouTube and we'll watch a video to figure out how they build a drill platform. And,
Mm,
so I go through, and that's just kind of with anything. If I don't know something, I'll allow them to know that, hey, I don't know that, but I got to
mm,
find that out. I got to figure that out. And I think that it helps them to show like nobody's perfect. You can make a mistake, or you cannot know nothing, or you cannot know something. But the key in that is actually trying to figure it out. You know what I
mm,
mean? Don't just be stagnant and say, I don't know it, and you just continue going on with life. If it's something that's pertinent, if it's something you want to find out about, you take the time to find out. And like I said, coming home with him and then watching the YouTube video, typing it up with them, and we sitting there watching it, I'm hoping that that's ingrained in him. Like, okay, we can just sit down together and figure this out together. I'm
yeah.
getting to watch my dad, who I think knows the world. He doesn't know something. This is exactly how you go and find it out. You ask questions. You don't be timid about it. You be truthful about it. I don't know that. I don't. I mean, let me
Yeah.
get back to you on that. And
Yeah.
so I'm just hoping with all those little micro things, I hope that just builds up to something macro for them to really gain, like I said, confidence and assurance about themselves, that if they don't know something, there's no embarrassment in just trying to find out the answer or
Mm.
trying to figure something out themselves.
I love that, bro, because I feel like our parents kind of did this, and even now I think some people still do this, where they'll either make up an answer, or they'll get mad about it, right?
Yeah.
Or they'll kind of be like, man, just hush up, like you a kid, don't worry about
Mm,
it, right? Something like
come on.
that. So for me, I'm just curious what your thoughts on it. But I always thought that was more so the reason why we would get those reactions, either as kids, or even now that fathers at times may do that, or other men, things like that, is because um, it comes with pride. I think they get too prideful of
Mm,
acknowledging that they don't know the answer. But I was just curious, what do you think is the reason, either from other fathers that that do that, or maybe your experiences growing up? Um, why do you think some people do respond? Because the way you're responding is amazing, but why do you think
yeah.
people respond the way that the opposite?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I think it's a couple of things. I think it's actually what you said too. It's a little bit of pride, but then it's
Mhm.
also a lot of the fathers, like I said, like you said, we grew up with parents, especially like in the '90s, where that
Yeah,
was just kind of the custom, the hush
yeah,
up. The when we eating dinner as a family, y'all got the kids table. Don't speak up when grown people is talking. I
yeah,
really, and I grew up like that, but like I
yeah.
said, really getting married and having a wife who has an open mind enough
Mm,
to be like, let's try something different. You know what I
mm,
mean? And just being on board, being in unison with one another to be like, you know what, you're right. Because not saying that me growing up with a 90s parent, it just, crushed me. But
yeah,
there's just a lot of things I think that if my mom would have kind of changed her upbringing with me, that I probably would have been a little bit more confident in high school. I probably wouldn't have been trying to fit in as much. If
yeah,
I would have had a voice to really speak, I'd have been able to stand up for myself in more situations.
yeah.
Um, and so I think that that's kind of the reason with some of the fathers. It's hard to build a house when you don't have the tools to, you know.
Mm,
And when you're raised by parents that just give you the hush up, or y'all gonna sit at the kids' table, then you feel like a kid. You're living in adolescence for longer than you need to.
mm.
And as you grow older, that's why I got friends now that I went to high school with that grew up, bro. I just be on Instagram and I'll be scrolling by their stories and I'm just like, Nas, who's my favorite rapper, has a song called Second Childhood, and a lot of people are really living in their second childhood. And I
Wow.
think, like I said, it's because they never really got a chance to grow up. They never really got a chance to explore, like expressing themselves.
Mm,
So I just hope with the change, and a lot of people call it gentle parenting, but I just call it, me and my wife call it just, it's just a different way of parenting, of really
yeah.
just giving our kids a voice to speak. If they're mad about something, allow them to voice what they're mad about. You know what I mean? I want them to be able to express themselves.
Yeah.
And they can do it now. So when they get older, when they're at that job or when they're in a relationship, especially with my daughters, that they have the voice to say no, to say, I don't deserve this, to say, I don't need to be here, whatever the case may be. Because I think a lot of us, like I said, growing up with that 90s mentality, we just kind of shut down and we're shut out from a lot of that experience. And
Yeah.
now that we're grown, we all just kind of trying to figure it out, and everybody's
Yeah.
figuring different steps in their lives. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
that's what it is.
I like that, bro. And like you said with the gentle, because people, I think people look at it, and I could be wrong, but um, I'm assuming you guys have that open dialogue, of course, and let your kids express themselves. But it's one of those things where you're like, okay, express yourself, but make sure you're being respectful, right? At least
Yeah,
that's for me. Like, just don't be talking crazy, right? Like, especially I'm like, you can't talk crazy to mom, like that. I'm gonna shut it down. That's not happening,
right,
right?
right.
So hey, we're gonna express yourself, but watch how you're talking. We're not one of your homeboys on the street or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I definitely, I definitely agree with you on that, man. So, I want to ask you, how do you, how do you help your children navigate through? Because what you're saying is great. So, I'm just curious, how do you help them navigate through those challenges or failures that's going to happen, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what do you aim for them to like learn from that experience, basically, right? So how do you help? Because obviously our kids are going to fail. They're going to have different challenges. What is something though that you feel like has really helped them be able, and they're kids, so it's obviously it's good. Your methods are going to change as they get older. But what is
Yeah.
something that you feel like helps them right now when they do experiences those challenges?
Well, there's actually two. It's funny you asked me this because there's actually two main things. I actually did this. Like I told you before we got on there. I just came from a paint night with my kids at school. But there's two things that I do in my household. Number one, like if my kids make a mistake or they don't feel adequate enough, I always tell them, or we have a phrase in my house where we just say, It's okay. You're learning."
Mm,
And I think that it's simple, but it makes a world of a difference because
yeah,
a lot of kids they feel the stress or the need to kind of be perfect or to get things right, and it's just like extra added anxiety for some reason. I don't know, but
yeah.
whenever my kids do something and it's not like it doesn't come out the way that they think it should, or if they fail a test or something like that, I automatically tell them it's okay, you're learning. We sit here and we practice every night. That doesn't mean that you're going to get every question right. But when you get something wrong, now this is an opportunity for you to focus on that one question and then do
Mm,
it better. And then another thing I do, like downstairs we have a TV and I have an Apple TV. And when it goes to sleep, it always shows like pictures in my photo album of just through our lives and things like that. And I always love to point out things like I'll take pictures of like I don't know some artwork my son drew when he was 4. You know what I mean? And it'll pop up on the screen. I'll be like, "You see that? Did you see that pop up? Man, you
mm,
draw much better than that now, huh?" But that's because you're 7.
mm,
You have to take your time to really learn and grow because you're
yeah.
continuously learning. So just because you start something, you're not going to be the best at it when you start it. It's you actually just sticking to it. You can become the best, but you definitely will get better as you continue to stick to it. Another like I go through that right now with them because we've had our kids in jujitsu. They've been doing jujitsu for about I want to say like about 7 or 8 months now. Bro,
Okay.
that first month and a half, they was just kind of like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And so I just told them like, okay, I mean, I hear you and I understand you, but I said you also have to remember this is your first time doing this stuff, and for a lot of the kids, this is their first time too. All of you guys are learning together, and
Yeah.
so we're gonna just I said so we're gonna make a deal. We're gonna stay in here for at least 6 months just to see how much you learn because from this month, the first month, your whole mindset might change when we get to the 6 months. once you're in it and once you're continuing to do it in practice. But like I said, now I think after the fourth or fifth month, my kids was asking like, "Oh, can we go to a competition? Can you put us in a competition
Also,
now?" Like, they love it. But I just like I said, you give them that. You give them. It's not harsh to really just. It's not harsh to keep them in there, but you have to show them that you just got to continue to keep at something to see if
yeah,
you can get better at it. But it takes time. When you do that, like I said, they get in and they kind of build their confidence. Same thing with any sport. We had them in
yeah,
soccer. They couldn't kick a ball to save their life. You know what I mean? But at the end of the season, my daughter was scoring goals here and there. So,
that's dope.
it's just time.
I like that, man. I like that. Before we close out, man, I want to ask you, what advice or what's one thing you can tell a father, right, about being I guess basically their child's first teacher, in a sense, like, what is something you wish, I'll put it like this, what is something you wish someone had told you when it came to doing this? Because like you said,
Mm.
you wish that your dad was being the father you needed, that your mom might have showed you certain things. Like, what is one thing that you wish someone had told you?
Man, I think the one thing, um, again, too, this is coupled, but the thing that comes to my mind is that every moment is going to be a memory, especially
Mm,
for kids. Like I said, with me, I didn't have my dad there, so those moments weren't even there for me. You know what I mean? To even have with him or that were created. But I
mm,
know now, like every time I'm teaching my kids something or just speaking to them, like every moment that I get with them, when they get older, when they get my age, this is going to be a memory for them. And so, in knowing that, like I have to continue to remain patient with them. You know what I mean? As I'm teaching them things, just like I said, they're not going to get it on the first try. Matter of
mm,
fact, the length of time that it might take them to learn something as civil to you as like 3 plus 2, you know what I mean? It might take them a little bit longer. And it's easy for us as parents, as fathers, to get frustrated like, come on now, this is easy, Johnny. You got three
yeah.
apples and two apples, it makes five.
Like
But
that
you just
TikTok meme or whatever that TikTok.
yeah, man, you know what I mean? But you just gotta continue to understand that it's time and it's just
Yeah.
patience, man. You're gonna just take time with them. And also, I think another important thing, especially in our culture as fathers now, I always say the term like we have a lot of like social media fathers. Like you
Mhm.
have a lot of people, and I don't know people personally.
Yeah.
They'll post something on social media, and like as they're parenting one way, but then when I see them in real life, I'm just like, that ain't what you posted on
Mm,
social media. You know what I
mm,
mean? And so,
yeah.
and I always tell people, especially like I'm doing a mentorship program where one of like some of the kids I'm doing a mentorship program with, like they're young fathers, actually, like teenage fathers. And I
Mm,
always tell them, you can never build a reputation on what you say you're going to do. You just got to do it. You have to be it. So many times when I was young, my dad used to always say, "Hey, I'm gonna pick you up this weekend." You know what I mean? And then that weekend turned into next weekend, then it turned into the weekend after
mm,
that, then it turned into a month. And he can't
yeah.
build a relationship with me. He can't build an identity as being my father just by saying what he's gonna do. That's
Mm,
different from him actually coming that first week, picking me up, and spending
yeah.
time with me. So we gotta do the same thing as fathers. We have to do and be better in that situation and in that
Mm,
mode. But like I said, the key word too is just patience. You have
mm,
patience with your kid because it takes time for them to learn. You
yeah.
also have to understand that every moment is going to be a memory for them, and you want them to have the best experience as a kid because they only got but so many years. They only have 18 years to be adolescent, then they have the rest of their lives to be an adult and do whatever they want to do.
Mm,
You know what I mean? But you also got to finish with make sure that you're building a reputation off of what you do and not what you're saying you're going to do.
no, that's good, bro.
Good.
I like that, man. I like that. And like you said, a social media thing too, because I know a few of those social media fathers, in a sense. So I definitely understand exactly what you're saying. So
Yeah, man.
um,
It's the epidemic.
yeah, yeah, it's wild. But before we close out, one, I want to say obviously thank you for coming on, bro. I definitely appreciate your time, and man, just you're seeing your beautiful family and seeing
Appreciate
the
it, man.
things you're doing and just hearing the things you're doing. Definitely blessings towards you, man. But I want you to plug in your. I'm also gonna put the link in y'all and for his book, and he also has a podcast. I told y'all he does literally a little bit of everything, right? I
Yeah,
told y'all.
do it all, man. I do it
So
all.
you do it all,
So
man. So
yeah,
what's
man.
the name of the book and then the podcast where they can find it?
So yes, the name of our book is Where Dreams May Take You. This was like a passion project for me and my wife. Is the book is actually based on our three kids. So
Mm.
you can find that on Amazon if you type in Where Dreams May Take You. Last time I checked, that was the only book on Amazon with that title, so you'll find
Okay.
it, right away. And then on the flip side of that, like I said, I have a podcast that I actually do with my wife, and it's called the Crafted Podcast. And
Mhm.
this podcast is actually we talk about we always have the same three segments and it's just different just a difference of whatever the topic might be for that segment, but we always talk about marriage and relationships. We talk about parenting because like I said, my wife is a school psychologist, so we always talk about things that she's learned as a school psychologist. She gives advice how to advocate for your kids in the school system and things of that nature. And then we just talk about just our life having three kids.
Mhm.
And then the third section, man, we just talk about current events or what might be going on. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like one of our previous episodes, I actually talked about the after school program that my kids are in, and
Mhm.
it's like a state funded after school program that we
Mhm.
didn't have to pay anything for, but it's just like really a blessing to have that. And I
Yeah.
was just making sure people know, like, when you're like, I know right now we're in election season and people are just focused on the two people I'm gonna vote for, but it's really deeper than that. Like, is you have to vote for like your local stuff. You know what I mean? Local funding for your schools and things of that nature to help your kids grow and really learn the way they're supposed to. So
Man, that alone could be a whole nother topic because we don't do that enough. We don't pay attention
yeah.
to what's happening locally. We always focus on the election year and nothing else. But
Hmm.
that's for another thing. But uh, um um so real quick to say the podcast again and then say where they can find it. Is it on all platforms or
Yeah. So our podcast is on all platforms: Spotify, Apple Music,
okay?
Google Play, wherever you get your podcast at, you'll be able to find us. And again, it's the Crafted Podcast. So CRAFTED podcast. Once you type that in, you'll see a picture of a beautiful black family on one of those podcasts. That's us.
That's dope. I love it. No, I love it, man. I love it. And yeah, like always, y'all. Make sure you make sure you subscribe, make sure you tell a friend, and like always, remember, you don't have to be perfect, but you always have to be present. I'll see you guys on the next one.